Okay. Thank you all so much for joining the UU Climate Action Roundtable. Today's January 28th, 2020. And to start us off, I have a reading for us, which is by a UU poet, Everett Hoagland. It's called Invocation. Architect of icebergs, snowflakes, crystals, rainbows, sand grains, dust motes, atoms. Mason whose tools are glaciers, rain, rivers, ocean. Chemist who made blood of seawater, bone of minerals in stone, milk of love. Whatever you are, I know this. Spinner, you are everywhere, in the all, the ever-changing above, whirling around us. Yes, in the loose strands, in the rough weave of the common cloth, threaded with our DNA on the hubbed, spoked, spinning wheel that is this world, solar system, galaxy, universe. Help us to see ourselves in all creation and all creation in ourselves in one another. Remind those of us who like connections made with similes, metaphors, symbols, all of us are, everything is already connected. Remind us as the oceans go, so go we. As the air goes, so go we. As other life forms on earth go, so go we. As our planet goes, so go we. Great poet who inspired, in the beginning was the word. Edit our thoughts so our ethics are our politics and our actions the afterlives of our words. That's Invocation by Everett Hoagland, a UU poet. And in the chat or in the agenda, you'll see a link to the poem words if you want to read it again, and also to an interview with Everett in the UU world. So once again, thank you everyone so much for coming. My name is Allie Tharp. I'm the program director for the UU Ministry for Earth. And just to give a brief background about the UU Climate Action Roundtables, these calls originated to support congregations with climate action teams through the UU United Nations office and the lay leaders who helped get this program off the ground many years ago. And I began facilitating these calls spring of 2016. And then in the summer of 2019, called for us to try to have state or provincial level, regional, and denomination-wide calls like this so that we can start kind of weaving our web of connection and resource sharing at these strategic levels. So this process began August of 2019 with mixed success, primarily with regards to coordination, because this is a lot more roundtables than one a month for anyone who wants to join. So we're still really working out how to best evolve this program. But you'll see in the agenda below that we're really working on strengthening our UU mutual support networks and our coordination to really unify for climate justice. So we'll be evaluating our plan and our schedule for UU Climate Roundtables in 2020. This is the first one of the year, and it's also our first ever Denomination-Wide Roundtable where we're really featuring speakers from organizations serving UU climate ministries at national and denomination-wide levels. So thank you for listening in or joining this, minor historic event. And to get us going, I broke the agenda down, and I'll share this link just one more time. Basically into 3 priority areas for the Create Climate Justice Initiative, which is a program co-sponsored by the UU Ministry for Earth and the UUA. And these priorities were established in the fall of 2018 by myself and Reverend Karen Brammer, our UUA Green Sanctuary Program Manager. And so this will kind of give you a sense of the many ways that we're working towards these 3 goals. And so to start us off, I wanted to invite Reverend Clyde Grubbs to speak. Clyde, are you here? Yes, you are. If you would unmute yourself and introduce yourself and then share just an update about what you're working on with General Assembly programs for 2020 and anything else you want to share.
This is kind of, I'm not muted.
There you are.
I'm not muted.
I got you.
I can't get Zoom to work on my computer, so I'm using my iPad. Therefore, I don't know where all the buttons are. At any rate, what's the question? General Assembly 2020 is the 400th anniversary of the landing of the Mayflower. So the General Assembly Planning Committee some time ago thought it would be good to hold it in Providence, Rhode Island, which is close to Plymouth, so we could do something about that. That's all I did, is make a plan to have it in Providence. So there was no plans made before that. So they was so people started. There was noise. I guess the UU universe has noise that this General Assembly will be in Providence and we'll be doing the 400th anniversary, but nobody did anything, really. Susan was elected. This was done 4 years ago. So Susan was elected, and so she had this on her agenda when she came into office again. We're going to be, in 2 years, we'll be in Providence. If you went through Justice GA in Phoenix in 2012, you didn't recognize it. 3 years of planning went into the work. So we've been doing a lot of work to catch up, working with the local indigenous communities, the Wampanoag, the Narragansett, the Lenape, etc., and with the United American Indians in New England, plus indigenous communities, other parts of the country that you use working with closely, but we had to initiate some of the contacts in New England. Those are relationships with indigenous communities, and there are the program. When the General Assembly asked for program submissions, there were lots of programs that came in, including the one that we'll be dealing with, how the relationship, several that will be dealing with the indigenous relationship, and UU relationship to those indigenous communities, and the issue of climate justice and colonialism. There'll be material, so there will be workshops and material in the program, and then there'll be what could be called a teach-in, although we're discouraged from using that term since it's not, but a forum for action on Sunday afternoon, which will be where people could be actually talking about programs that are going on that will be develop relationships between UU communities and indigenous communities, and many of whom there is an intersection around earth justice. That's a good start?
Yes, thank you, Clyde.
Do you want to ask clarifying questions? I went compressed, but.
No, I think that's good. And I know you can't stay for the whole call, but
I can stay for a while, but I got calls coming up this afternoon, and I was on calls since 9 o'clock this morning. So.
Okay. If anyone has questions related to that, feel free to put them in the chat window, and we can field questions that way.
And you and I have to plan a workshop, since I noticed they didn't put your name on it, but it was the one you proposed, and it got accepted.
Great. We have one, decolonization and climate justice.
Yeah, but I don't know why your name in there, and they have drum sponsoring and not UU Ministry for Earth. But we'll talk.
Thanks, Clyde. Okay, Linda, are you on the call? Reverend Linda White? There you are. If you'd be willing to speak next on our International Initiative for Transformative Collaboration.
The short name is INITC, and I'm currently the president of that organization, although it is an Indigenous-led and inspired group. The leader of of that group is Johnny Azaron, who was one of the leaders at Standing Rock. He was responsible for wellness and the religious aspects of that journey at camp. We've done several experiential types of things regarding climate. And the focus is different because we always start from agreement instead of trying to start from a goal that we're trying to reach. Because as you know, when people come with preconceived notions of what it is we want to accomplish, there are always barriers to that because we don't all agree on how to get there. When we start with agreement, we have a better chance of moving forward. In August, we had a camp of maybe about 110 people came. Most people who came were, and it was in the Black Hills, most people who came were from tribes there. We had youth there who had never been off the reservation. We had people from Australia, Indigenous people who came and did their sacred dances. And we had discussions about treaties, and many of the elders of the Lakota were part of that. Out of that, I believe we understand that we need to have ways of talking with each other and understand that it's how we do things, not what we do, that makes a difference. Many people came out of that camp saying that their lives had been changed, and we hope to be a part of General Assembly this year. And unfortunately, we didn't present a program in time for it to be accepted or not accepted. So we're going to be doing something off the grid. And I hope people that are attending General Assembly will come to the programming. We'll have evenings with films, Doctrine of Discovery would be one of them, and the person who made that documentary hopefully will be there. And there'll be other opportunities to have discussions about what's happening in our world and how we can come together to help save it.
I think we can add, we have a tentative date for another gathering in the Black Hills for 2020, which is September 3rd through the 6th of 2020. So we're still finalizing the reservation of our location, but you can go ahead and mark that in your calendar if you're interested in joining the INITC community dialogues and process.
Yes, for us, all things lead to the Black Hills.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
All right, so we are on to our third item under the section of Solidarity with Indigenous Frontline Communities, and Reverend Karen Van Fossen will help lead that to discuss our Water Protector Prisoner Support Ministries.
Thank you. It's good to be with you all, and to hear the updates from Allie and Clyde and Linda too. As you may know or remember, a couple of summers ago at General Assembly, our body unanimously passed an action of immediate witness, which essentially committed to ongoing and deepening solidarity with water protectors, particularly Indigenous political prisoners. And at this time, out of the water protector movement that Linda was just referring to, that Johnny was so much at the heart of, at this time there are 5 political prisoners who have come out of the No DAPL, No Dakota Access Pipeline movement. And 2, or depending on how you do the counting, 2 to 4 of them are still, probably all 5 are still in the system, and 2 are still incarcerated. Essentially, they are incarcerated for being Indigenous people, protecting Indigenous lands and ways of life. And what I'd like to do today is just give you a website so you can keep up with the political prisoners, and I'll put that in the chat. It's nodapplpoliticalprisoners.org for those who are on the phone. No DAPL politicalprisoners.org. And like I said, I'll put it in the chat when I'm done speaking. And there's a link on there about how to just stay in contact and be the extended community of political prisoners, even when, and people on this call may have different experiences of jail and prison yourselves, but it's pretty isolating. It's designed to be that even when you're there, because you're an identified leader of a movement. So my request would be, as possible, if you could send letters or notes to political prisoners, particularly Rattler, whose birthday is this coming Sunday. I might even just put his mailing address in the chat. He continues to do the work. All the political prisoners continue to do the work in whatever settings they're in, including prisons. There's a lot of good organizing that's going on. And still our sense of being an extended community on the outside has been very important. And I'm grateful for this UU community that is that. And I'll put some info in the chat now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. And Karen Brammer, I'm gonna unmute you in case you have anything to add.
Hi, Karen Brammer here. Thank you, Ellie, for putting this together, and so good to hear from everyone. I'm on the road, and so I'm gonna really minimize the amount that I say, and hope that Nancy King-Smith, who's the president of the Green Sanctuary Advisory Board, might fill in a little more detail. But essentially, right now, the 2 priority pieces of the Green Sanctuary program, I would say 2 of the 3, the third would be supporting the water protector network through the work of Karen Danfossen and Green Sanctuary congregations. The other 2 pieces are moving all of the work of Green Sanctuary into a format online in a way that will encourage congregations to network with one another and with other organizations doing climate organizing, in particular, climate and environmental justice organizing, actually, and also climate urgency work. And that would be the third piece, is using the Green Sanctuary platform to encourage congregations to not just understand, but respond to the urgency of the climate crisis. And so if, Nancy, you're there and available to say a little bit more about the climate urgency piece, if we have time, Allie, I'd like to invite her to do that.
Yes, thank you, Karen. We'll do that a bit later in the agenda, Nancy.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next on our agenda is Erin Horvath with the Canadian Unitarian Council to speak with us about the Ripple Effect campaign and their truth, healing, and reconciliation work.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting us to join you. And it's really great to hear the various things that you're up to. I'll try to just give you a snapshot in 2 minutes of some of the things. Our general approach has been to provide resources for people to do their work on the grassroots, so then the priority can be with actual relationships and building kind of the solidarity within the context. So some of the things that are going on, the Ripple Effect campaign is looking specifically at water. And sort of an interesting thing, I don't know if you've found this or not, but all the rage now is climate, but people don't seem to see water as part of that. So that's been an interesting challenge to help contextualize, where there's people who understand the value of water inherently, but not understanding how the two fit together, and that if you're just dealing with the climate strikes, but then Nestle's moving in and taking permits out of your wells so that your people don't have water, then water becomes the new oil. So that kind of education to help people then to go, oh wow, I really need to find out. Are we a blue community? So the Council of Canadians has a movement called the Blue Communities. So we're really encouraging people in their climate action to start to take note, wherever you live, is your community water safe from the privatization process? So that's, a part of it. Also within Canada, there's a huge connection between water, Indigenous people's quality of water being less than the rest of general kind of Canada would be experiencing. And then of course, as we have more of these climate emergencies, then money is spent on, the flooding here and there and wherever, and less on the issues at hand. So that's part of it. And then we also have this kind of a curveball in that we have a federal government right now in place that is actually trying to address some of the longstanding issues when it comes to Indigenous healthcare and water and all these various things. But the challenge then has been not to discourage completely, because this is the government that so far has been the most proactive, but they really haven't been proactive enough. For those of us who work and are more intimately involved in the grassroots, we can see there's still a ways to go. We had an Indigenous female politician who tried to take some stands on things, and then the government fired her. And, so lots of interesting kind of nuanced things for people to come in alongside and try to understand. We've had the Wet'suwet'en pipeline issues out west. And so part of what we've been trying to do with that is educate our members about the difference between hereditary chiefs and colonial chiefs, and how that's kind of a complicated thing in that. I don't know if this is the dynamic in the States or not, but there's so many aspects to it that without Unitarians continuing to educate themselves, they might actually find themselves speaking up, but in a way that the Indigenous community doesn't find helpful. So yeah, trying to spend some time on that. Yeah, there's a few other different things going on, but I guess what I want to say is that we're really trying to encourage people to look at things in layers. So instead of trying to segment something and say, well, we only are doing this one thing, look at the ways they can connect. So one of the good news stories was one of our congregations is looking at water, but they're doing it alongside other communities. So one of them is Six Nations, which is a First Nation. So there's that going on, plus they're doing their multi-generational work, and they're connecting it in with climate justice. So they kind of have 4 things going on, and that's been something that we're really trying to work on, is people trying to see how you can feed multiple birds with one seed, rather than just say, well, we're maxed out because we're doing our one thing this year. So yeah, so those are a few of the things. And then the last thing I'll mention is the THR guides. That's kind of like the main way, truth, healing, and reconciliation, but that we're trying to work with our congregations for them to deepen their understanding of Indigenous, our shared colonial histories that are ongoing, and then how we can do differently in taking responsibility for our government and our society's actions. So if you want to know more about that, you can always ask. That's the update I can give you in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Erin.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So our next update is about an opportunity for everyone to screen a film called The Condor and the Eagle, which is a prophecy shared by many nations across North and South America. And this is a film that UU Ministry for Earth fundraised through Faithify to become an executive producer of. So UU's helped make this film even possible. And the directors are working with us to offer a screening opportunity that will also raise funds for ongoing UU solidarity and climate justice work with Indigenous communities. So there's a link in the minutes document, and there's also a link that I'll post in the chat right now to a webpage that provides you with the trailer to watch the film and see what it's about, to understand that we're asking $300 or more from each congregation, $300 as a minimum that you can raise. And you can also let us know if that's just unrealistic for your context. But the hope is that the funds raised from these film screenings across the country will support the film to be shown across North and South America through screenings this spring and summer, and also to bring our Indigenous partners to General Assembly and to help us support campaigns throughout 2020. So this is really foundational to fundraising for UU Indigenous solidarity work. My goal is to get at least 100 congregations, and ideally closer to 300 congregations, to screen the film before General Assembly in the spring of 2020. So we recommend screening the film on World Water Day, March 22nd, but it's really open for you to schedule to screen the film sometime this spring on whatever day works best for your congregation. And we provide you with the permission form, the promotional materials, a discussion guide, and also some opportunities to use the film to launch off continued learning and engagement in your congregation. So please check out that link, and please share this information with other leaders in your congregation. We've got about 75 more congregations needed to sign up in order to reach our baseline target goal of 100 congregations. So please make your congregation one of those. And then the next resource I wanted to lift up is that the common read for 2020 is An Indigenous People's History of the United States, and the recently published youth version of the book, which is better for a high school or early college reading level. And so the first link in the agenda provides you just to the UUA Common Read landing page and the discussion guide that they published. And then last week we had an interview with the creator of the discussion guide, Gail Forsyth-Vail, who is a religious educator and a recently retired UUA staff for lifespan education, and also a link to supplemental resources that you can use to connect this process of reading the book to other environmental justice learning around Indigenous frontline issues. So check that out. And that is it in terms of this section. And so this section being Indigenous Frontline Solidarity for Climate Justice. And so now we'll move into catalyzing a just transition to an ecological civilization through partnership and civic engagement. So that's a very broad umbrella, and we'll start with talking about the UU the Vote campaign with Reverend Michael Crumpler, and I don't know if Susan Leslie made it on the call, so we'll kick off with Michael. Awesome.
Is not here. Hello, everyone. I am Reverend Michael Crumpler, and I am the LGBTQ and Multicultural Programs Director at the Unitarian Universalist Association. Thank you so much, Allie, for this invitation to talk about UU Vote, as well as for this opportunity for me to hear all that is happening climate-wise in our faith. And so thank you so much for all that folks have presented. I've certainly learned. Would like to begin. Allie, do I have sharing privileges?
Yeah, so it's at the bottom. You can click share and then select the screen.
Fantastic. I'd like to just share Susan Frederick Gray's brief video around UU the Vote, and then talk to you all about UU the Vote. So give me a second to cue that up.
The 2020 elections are the most critical in our lifetime. Whether you're passionate about climate change, LGBTQ equity, reproductive rights, immigration, or racial justice, the 2020 elections matter. That's why the UUA is launching UU the Vote to activate and resource Unitarian Universalists nationally to mobilize voters, counter voter suppression, and to engage in spiritually grounded, values-based issue conversations and electoral organizing. This is an all-hands-on-deck effort, canvassing, voter registration, phone and text banking, and organizing in partnership with directly impacted communities to protect our neighbors and civil liberties. UU the Vote will provide national resources that all congregations can use and will make high-impact investments in strategic places where UUs can make a key difference. All of us have a role to play in next year's elections, rooted in our values of democracy, the inherent worth and dignity of all people, partnership and interdependence. We must be bold in organizing for a future where all people can thrive. This is no time to be on the sidelines. We must organize and vote with love. I am asking you to help UU the Vote.
So thank you so much. Let me make sure I close this out on my end. Thank you so much for that. No one says it better for me than the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray in that regard. But our UU values of independence, democracy, and inherent worth and dignity of all people are direct antidotes to the fear and bigotry and inequity that define our world. In this political moment, UUs are called to join forces with all people who want to organize our communities and our nation in order to vote love and defeat hate. And so that's why it's so important in every space around our organizing to connect. I am largely responsible for our LGBTQ organizing and messaging within our faith. And so it's such a pleasure for me to connect with climate folks because we're not siloed into these two areas, but climate, immigration, LGBTQ, all of race work, all of our issues are interdependent and intersectional. And so in order for UU the Vote to be successful, we need all of you who are on this call to be mobilized and connected to the campaign so that, folks can be motivated because we all know what's at stake in the next elections. So UU the Vote campaign is our massive effort to support congregations and UU organizations in activating thousands of UUs to mobilize voters, counter voter suppression, and engage in spiritually grounded, values-based issues, conversations with voters and communities. Part of our campaign is 50 ways to UU the Vote. So I'm going to just read the first 10, just to kind of give you an idea as to what we're hoping for in this campaign. One would be form an electoral justice committee at your congregation, contact justice organizations in your community and volunteer for their voter outreach efforts, donate to partners and frontline community organizations, help collect signatures on justice-oriented ballot initiatives for raising wages, criminal justice reform and climate justice, and more. Pass the plate for local groups doing donor outreach, invite speakers from direct issue-based campaign to speak at your worship service, hold a fundraiser event for local groups doing voter outreach, send invitations to local groups, letting them know meeting space is available at your congregation, hold a nonpartisan forum in your church, or have a special skill like legal, marketing, or accounting, volunteer pro bono time to local groups. So these are just a few ways to engage UU the Vote. But for more information, I'm going to put a few links in the chat box. For more information, you can visit uuthevote.org for information and events. You can join the UU the Vote Facebook group. You can join UU the Vote Slack, news communications tool. And the most exciting is that we have a UU office hours, which is weekly on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you can use the link there to contact that. And I'll also have this information available to include in any follow-up resources for Allie. But thank you all so much, and we look forward to voting love and defeating hate in 2020.
Thank you, Michael. So next on our agenda is Doris Marlin, who's the organizer and lay leader of the Strengthen Local Climate Commitments campaign. Doris, go ahead. And you're still muted. I'm clicking unmute. Uh-oh.
Okay, sorry about that. Could you give me share privileges, please?
You have it already.
I have it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and I have my timer on too, so that I stay within my 3 minutes. All right, you should be seeing a slide that says community engagement reduces greenhouse gases 7 to 12% more. Is that up there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hi, I'm Doris Marlin. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and I am the lay leader for Strengthen Local Climate Commitments, because for climate action and to achieve our goals by 2030 of reducing greenhouse gases by 50%, we pretty much need an all of the above strategy. So the slide I'm showing you is what the Paris Climate Agreement, what the US committed to. So you see a gray line in the middle that says reduction of 26 to 28% below 2005. Now in 2025 and in 2030, we will barely get there. And that's with enhanced community engagement. So what Strengthen Local Climate Commitments aspires to do is to take the thing that 80% of Unitarian congregations around the country have in common. And that is, we all have a mayor or a state elected official who has committed to reaching this goal through either the Mayor's Climate Coalition or the State Alliance or others. And essentially enhancing community engagement can help us get as close as possible as we can to these reductions. So you can see on the notes that there will be a Zoom meeting on Friday to show more, or to talk more about what the SLIC program is all about. And just to cover it a little bit more, all right, the who, any action takers, you use in your congregation, your friends, your neighbors, anybody like-minded in your community. Well, what are we doing? We want to strengthen and accelerate the local climate commitments. And the campaign is set up for you to send an email or to engage continuously with your community. And my time is up, so I'm just going to highlight the whys. And number one is to partner and to get those elected representatives to actually do what they have pledged to do. Number two is to focus on climate justice and equity, empowering frontline communities, empower them to be at the table during and throughout implementation, to prepare for resiliency and disaster preparedness, and essentially climate action co-benefits all of the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations and pretty much everywhere in the world is striving to achieve. And thank you for letting me exceed my time, Allie. I hope everyone will join the call, or just send a message so you can be on the mailing list to the SLIC campaign. The link is there. It's one of the action items under UUMFE. Thanks, Allie. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Doris.
You can also put a note in the chat box and I'll contact you directly.
Thank you, Doris. So next is David Shilton with UUs for Social Justice, and this relates to a campaign this spring with UUs for Social Justice and Ministry for Earth as part of the Right Here, Right Now campaign with UUSJ, who is our national voice in the United States Capitol. Go ahead, David.
Thanks, and hi everybody, glad to be here. I'm sort of pinch hitting for Lavona Grow, who usually does the UUSJ bit, but as Ali mentioned, we are doing a Right Here, Right Now campaign. Some of you may be familiar with that. Congregations write handwritten letters, and we have an advocacy corps that delivers them to House and Senate offices and gets meetings with staffers. We try and be strategic about choosing issues where there's a bill moving in Congress, or where we think we can move the ball in a progressive direction. We'll be focusing on climate issues in March and April, and congregations will have a chance to write letters. The more letters we get from more congressional districts and states, the more offices we'll be able to get into to carry our UU voices. So there are a couple of links on the agenda you can click on to keep updated on those efforts, and we hope many of you participate in those Right Here, Right Now campaigns. Another thing that UUSJ is just starting to work on, you may have heard about the proposed revisions to National Environmental Policy Act regulations that the administration has proposed. Those revisions, if they go through, could greatly limit the ability of frontline communities to have an effective voice in environmental decision-making on big projects. They could also greatly limit the number of projects that are even covered with environmental impact statements. For instance, pipelines, since they're not funded by the federal government, might not be covered. So we think it's important that UUs, hopefully with other faith groups, comment on those. There's a 60-day comment period which ends on March 10th. So we're going to be mounting an effort to put together comments on those regulations. So those are a couple of things that UUSJ is doing, and this is my first time with this group, and I think you're all doing great stuff. I'm very, very happy to be hearing about all you're doing. Thanks.
Thanks, David. All right. So next on the agenda are updates from UUs for Just Economic Community, and I see we have both Terry Lohman and Sally Gellert on the line, so I'll open the floor to both of you to share some updates and invitations.
I unmuted, so if Sally unmutes, we'll let her talk too. We have 2 General Assembly workshops that we got through. One is on peace and taking money away from the military and putting it in the environment. The military is the #1 polluter and user of fossil fuels in the world. And so we would like to suggest we can do something about that. And our person who put this together is a friend of Daniel Ellsberg, and Daniel Ellsberg will be speaking. And I've forgotten the name of one of our ministers that's going to speak, Indigenous man, Gary, Reverend Gary from New Mexico.
Gary McAlpin, Tahlequah,
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
Okay, he's going to be doing that with us. And we also might have Cynthia McKinney, but we have 75 minutes, so we have to be careful not to overdo it. The one program that isn't really so related, well, it is kind of related to the environment, is reparations for the African American community. And of course, African Americans and minority and poor people suffer terribly from environmental degradation, but I don't know that that's really going to be part of the presentation. Sally, are you there?
I think you got it covered. We're also looking to do a poster session, possibly more than one, where that application is still in process. So.
And I know, so the UUs for Just Economic Community have a lot of resources on their website related to the Green New Deal. So we'll get that link in the chat in case you're not familiar with that. And Terry or Sally, is there info online about the tree planting initiative that Reverend Lucy Hitchcock is heading up?
I didn't get that. What?
I know Lucy
planting. I believe she's put some material up. If not, we'll make sure to get it up as
No,
quickly as we can.
there is something on tree planting. I'm sorry, I just didn't hear you.
Okay, if you'll put that link in the chat, I'll get it in the minute notes as well, so that we can spread the word about that. Great. Thanks.
That's the goal, to have every UU society plant 25 trees, either on their own property, in members' property, locally. Just let's build something positive.
Thank you, Sally. Okay, so next on the agenda is just an update about Earth Day 2020 and the global climate strikes, which so Earth Day is April 22nd, and then there's a call for climate strikes starting on Earth Day and going through that Friday, April 24th. So a 3-day climate strike led by youth, but involving multiple sectors. I know some cities, the youth are working with labor and various groups, and it's really a call for everyone, including all of our UU congregations, to really show up for the youth climate strike movement. And so there's a link there which takes you to Ministry for Earth's landing page about Earth Day. And so this is where we'll be updating a lot of things. We also have Helen Rose on the line, who's with the Earth Day Network, which supports Earth Day action all across the world. And the UUA and UU Ministry for Earth are both officially partnered with the Earth Day Network. So their website also has a lot of resources for citizen science, for plastic cleanup, a Great American Cleanup, which of course Canada is also welcome to participate in, and many other things. And Earth Day Network is also partnering to for what they're calling Earth Rise, which is supporting the 3-day climate strike. You'll also see, a lot of churches already have their Earth Day plans set out. So follow the link in the chat, please, and just let Ministry for Earth and the UUA know what your plans are for Earth Day 2020. We usually do a kind of a raffle of those submissions for a $100 UUA bookstore gift certificate. So if that motivates you, that might be worth your time to just let us know what your Earth Day plans are locally. And then, feel free to reach out. And the third thing here is there's a group on createclimatejustice.net for UU climate strike mobilization. This is the group to go to talk to other UUs about what we're doing, to share stories about, or questions with one another about how we're engaging in this broader movement. So we're running short on time, so I'm going to go ahead and just speed through some of these things. We have the next section here is strengthen UU communications and mutual support networks for climate justice. And let me see, Laura, I don't see Laura Wagner on the line. I see some of our state action network leaders here on the line. I'll just give a shout out to New Hampshire and Washington. And we have many state action networks who are engaging with UU Ministry for Earth and UU College of Social Justice and the coalition of UU state action networks to really build these webs, get our states much more networked and able to respond to opportunities and to challenges for our climate justice ministries. So, see if your state has something already in the works. Along this route, we have about 10 states in some stages of plugging in with Create Climate Justice. And, of course, we want to expand that to make sure everyone has a strong state action network. So next, I'll pass the proverbial mic over to Bruce Knotts, the director of our UU United Nations office, to speak about our Intergenerational Spring Seminar.
Hi, yes, we have a seminar on climate justice. It's going to be April 16, 17, 18. We are actually in the process of trying to nail down Naomi Klein as our keynote speaker. No guarantee there, but we're working on it. And it should be a really great seminar. We are really going to look at climate justice from as many angles as we have time to do. We definitely will bring in the very important factor of Indigenous peoples. I firmly believe that if we're going to have a chance of sustainable development in the world, we need Indigenous people to teach us how to live sustainably on the earth, because they've been doing it for thousands of years while we've been messing it up. So we definitely, and actually it also happens to coincide with the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Rights. So we're hoping to dovetail with that as well. So I don't know, any other questions about the seminar? We hope you sign up. Our early registration ends on February 3rd. So if you want the reduced price early registration, please register before February 3rd, and it's intergenerational. So we want people of all ages, 14 and up. 14 is our minimum.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, next is Amelia Deal, the network coordinator for the UU Young Adults for Climate Justice.
Hey y'all, good to be on the call with everyone. I'm Amelia, and as Ali said, I'm the network coordinator for the Young Adults for Climate Justice Network, and I know we're short on time, so I'll just kind of quickly plug that I'm going to be at the spring seminar and excited to lead a direct action workshop. And then also have been talking with Helen Rose from the Earth Day Network about doing sort of more webinar-based workshops kind of leading up to the training, knowing that not everyone can make it to New York City. And those will be kind of especially to prepare for Earth Day strikes. And then I'm also curating a zine around theologies of place and climate justice. Intergenerational submissions will be welcome as long as young adult participation is involved. But yeah, so that is kind of anything that can be rendered two-dimensionally that responds to ideas of place. So would love to hear from all of you all about the work that you've been doing. And yeah, I can put links about that in the chat. Thanks for all the work people are doing.
Thank you, Amelia. Okay, we have a question. Do you have to be a UU to go to New York City? Bruce, do you have an answer for that, for the seminar?
No, you do not have to be a UU, and we have welcomed many different faiths. Primarily it is UUs that attend, but we've had many different faiths and all are welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so next I have some announcements about the Create Climate Justice Initiative related to this issue or area, strengthening our communications and mutual support networks. So I did notice earlier a question in the chat about the groups that we've created. This is, I'm sure, related to the website that we've launched. May of 2018, we launched createclimatejustice.net. And this is a private, secure web platform that allows you to directly reach out to over 1,000 other UU climate activists. And so the way it works is you set up an individual profile, you join groups, create a group for your congregation, and then there's a member directory that you can filter by geography or by interest area, a resource directory, an events directory. And so this is a hub for UUs to share updates about what they're doing, and also to find resources and to find one another and build coalitions. So we have monthly live web tours on the second Tuesday of every month at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern. The next one is on February 11th. And there's a link in the chat that allows you to get the call information for that. And so these are led by Diane Brooks, who is a consultant or contractor with us. And we also are able to, there's a contact form where we can answer questions you have at any time to help you with learning how to use this website. It's a very powerful tool. I think there's still just a process of getting people comfortable with the platform and understanding just how powerful it is in order to really connect us. So another thing is that we are integrating the Green Sanctuary Program's accreditation reporting into the platform, createclimatejustice.net. Nancy, do you want to speak a minute about that?
Unmute here. Okay, yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the opportunity for people to be able to go online and put in their applications and get immediate feedback is something we've been looking to do and are very excited about that. And as Karen mentioned, we're looking at redoing some of the requirements for both Green Sanctuary accreditation and reaccreditation in the future to be more focused on climate urgency. So both of those things you'll be hearing more about as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, there's also a mailing list, which is probably how many of you got on this call. This is being managed by the UUA, and so it's our Create Climate Justice newsletter. There's a link in the chat for you to sign up to join this mailing list if you're not already on it. And I wanted to let you know to just plan for this next Denomination-Wide UU Climate Action Roundtable to be April 2020, and to stay tuned for updates and a schedule for the roundtables in between and after. Like I said at the beginning of the call, we're really assessing the way it worked to launch this new kind of pattern of roundtables, and so we're studying how it went or didn't go well, and making our plans for the year. And along similar lines, we're looking at our Create Climate Justice priorities, seeking to expand and strengthen partnerships throughout 2020, and potentially restructure, so we just did this call by 3 priorities that were established in October of 2018. And so now we're at a time, you may hear an update sometime soon of just resetting our strategies for the next few years, now that we've been working on these diligently for 2 years. Not that these will go away, but that you might see a bit of reframing about what we mean to unite under this campaign, Create Climate Justice. So I have a couple other updates that didn't really fit into that framework of the 3 Create Climate Justice priorities. One is a call to create a piece of art, a puppet or a banner or some other creative art form at your congregation to bring to General Assembly, representing an endangered or threatened species in your local area, and to use that as an opportunity to learn your ecological and cultural history, and to learn about current threats to your local ecology in a multi-generational way, tie in climate change and how that will affect these species, and then together at your church create some artistic representation, bring it to General Assembly 2020, and then we'll be integrating this into the program. We're still finalizing where, but at least once in the general hall in one of the big GA programs, and potentially in other spots throughout the week. So that's a very exciting opportunity, and we're tying this in with resources for a suggested Biodiversity Sunday on May 17th, because we have, I believe the 15th is an Endangered Species Day, and May 22nd is a World Biodiversity Day. And also the Side with Love campaign launched 30 Days of Love, which provides daily inspiration and resources. So this is, there's a link to that page. There's a really beautiful video that just got published, and then you can follow Side with Love on social media and on their mailing list to basically just receive some spiritual nourishment and support for the hard work of justice organizing. So I think that might be a helpful resource for some of us as we just grapple with the magnitude of what we're working on. So I know it's 12:05 my time, 1:05 Eastern, and I did see in the chat some calls for lifting up different resources. We'll put that in our call notes. Drawdown, the Climate Healers work of Salish Rao and David. So at this point, there's just an invitation for people to unmute their line and to ask questions about everything we've gone over, and to share other resources. Let me reiterate that the point of this call is not to focus on things locally, but things that people can plug in on at the denomination-wide level. So if what you want to say only pertains to people in your local area, maybe just put it in the chat window, or save it for a different audience. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm gonna just open the floor. I know David Takahashi, if you want to go next, you mentioned you have something to share.
Oh, great. I didn't think I was going to get a chance. Would it be okay if I shared a screen and took a minute?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, I'm speaking to you today about a publicly available simulator called En-ROADS. I will put the link in the chat box afterward, but it really ties together a lot of the things that you all have been talking about, and it basically is an interactive way of changing our systems in such a way that our temperature starts to get down to our commitments. And what we'd really like to do is get through our actions on all these sliders down below this 1.5. If we stopped, if humans disappeared today, and there was no more buildup, we would be looking at 1.2. Okay, so that's our kind of background, 1.2. The important thing for you all is that for each of these little areas, like carbon price, we can go in, we can take a look at some of the information about this. But for you guys, what I've been hearing is the co-benefits, and the equity considerations. So for each of these sliders, which are very, very interesting, you can drill down and you start to get information about what is really going on. You also can, for instance, start to really focus in on what is really going on here. And it's totally interactive. What it is about is establishing this view, which is that we need to decarbonize. The practices, which are all of these sliders, and a call to action, which is to get us down here where coming generations are going to thank us. I am done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
You bet.
We have a question of, does En-ROADS relate to Project Drawdown?
Yes, we're trying to get to a livable planet, and these are two views of how to get there. But yes, they are definitely the top 100 drawdown initiatives you will be able to find somewhere in the En-ROADS, and it'd be good to have a training if anybody's interested. You know, Rich Green and I would be willing to lead you through an interactive session. So let us know. Thank you.
And can you put the link in the chat?
Yes, I can. I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to say we've got 5 more minutes. We've already lost about 15 people. Well, I guess as long as y'all need to stay, I can hold the space. Michael, if you want to speak briefly about Interfaith Power and Light as a resource.
Yes, I think most states have Interfaith Power and Light, and New Hampshire's just gotten that. But a very interesting thing is that there's a Get Out the Vote and voter education project that they're working on on an interfaith basis that I think can be really effective. So I would encourage people to check out their own state's Interfaith Power and Light, and there's going to be resources available. It could be really a game changer in some states.
Thanks, Michael. And Nadine?
Yeah, so I'm with Citizens Climate Lobby. I'm the nationwide Unitarian Universalist Action Team leader. We have UUs all over the country. Some of your congregations may host Citizens Climate Lobby meetings. We have a very active group, people who are looking to legislatively work through the federal legislative process to get a price put on carbon in a way that doesn't negatively impact low and moderate income people. And the Unitarian Universalist Association has endorsed the legislation we're supporting. So we want to strongly put out there that this is something that UUA supported, and would love to see more UUs get involved in this work on legislation that actually exists. It's not something that's a pipe dream, it's actually in Congress, and we need a lot more people to help us out. So if you would like more information, we have a group on createclimatejustice.net, and you can find me there. Thank you.
Thanks, Nadine. All right.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
This is Doris. Hi, and hi, Nadine, and hi, many of you that were on the climate reality, 24 hours of climate reality call. So Nadine and Gary and several others made awesome presentations. If you are on createclimatejustice.net, and you can find all of these presentations under, well, actually it's open to everybody, but you can find them under the Climate Reality Leaders group, but anybody can access these recordings of the presentations that were given that day. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, last call. Anyone have another update about pertinent resources they want to share, or a question?
I'll give a shout out to the climate Yale climate opinion polls. Those are fantastic resources. I've put the link in the chat box, and now you can pull up a specific fact sheet for your city, your county, your congressional district, and there's about 30 questions all related to what your local area thinks about climate action. For instance, is your local representative doing enough? And it gives you that polling response. So really, really amazing tool for sharing and understanding what the thinking is in your community related to climate.
Thank you. And Amelia, and then I don't know who else is going.
I'd like to go.
Okay.
Right now? No.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add just one idea to throw out there. This wasn't already on folks' radar, but in thinking about strengthening local commitments and ways that all communities can get activated on climate, is one really cool tactic that's been gaining a lot of ground is municipalizing or democratizing the city's energy source, or your state's. So, right, like thinking that like your city might have a climate commitment, but where is the energy coming from? And if it's still a privately owned corporation, they're probably not going to change to renewables, right? So I can send some links. This is a movement that's been growing around the country and everywhere. And if you want to put pressure on your local kind of city government, it's definitely a possible change. So thanks.
Okay, I have another suggestion. A link. I don't know if you've heard of the Transition Network, the Transition Movement. It's a worldwide movement that was started in England. Different cities can join it. Pasadena is one, that envisions a new way of living together without fossil fuels dominating everything. I can put the link in the chat. It's called transitionnetwork.org. It's a movement of communities coming together to reimagine and rebuild our world, and it's really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Nadine? Allie, I wish to thank you for organizing this roundtable. It's been quite an effort. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you all.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
This is really quick.
Go on, Tim.
I was on a webinar yesterday with the Houston coordinator for the Nature Conservancy, and he was speaking about collaboration, and his examples tended to be unique to our area because the coastal prairie is probably the most endangered ecosystem on the planet. But his examples and his philosophy about how to get multiple organizations to work together were just mind-blowing. You know, really practical tips, like if you make up a printed flyer, don't just claim it for one organization if 5 of them worked on it, because otherwise the coalition falls apart. And if you want to check with your local Nature Conservancy person, you might end up with some really good insights on how to do collaboration. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for coming. Once again, we'll have our next Denomination-Wide Climate Action Roundtable in April, and stay tuned for more updates in the meantime. Thank you.